Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast. The show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by Brogan Mace, the creator of Project Simia. Project Simia is a social media campaign which is looking to promote the conservation of primates of all shapes and sizes. So, Brogan and I chat about the issues with how primates are portrayed online. She helps me understand the differences between apes, monkeys, lemurs, and other primates, and I try and convince her that the orangutan is the greatest of the great apes. Alongside that, we also talk about some of our favourite underappreciated primates, including geladas, snub-nosed monkeys, and proboscis monkeys. We also chat about films, an alien, and A Star is Born, and it's all bizarre but a great, fun, super relevant time when you get to it, I promise. And yeah, I just really love this episode, and I hope you do too. Now, before I spoil everything for you, without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Brogan Mace, the founder of Project Simia, a series of social media accounts which educate audiences on the importance of primates and promote their protection and conservation. And just to get us started, I want to first say a huge thank you for joining me today, Brogan. It's so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. We have followed each other on social media for a very long time. I've followed all of the accounts across Twitter and Instagram and all of the various places, and so interesting, so great to have you on the show, and so great to actually get to kind of chat to you face to face, because I think that's something like social media we don't get to do very often. So it's really, really nice to finally actually hear what you sound like and get to chat to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, it's a bit of a bizarre one, I always find. But I suppose I kind of have introduced you and I'm kind of familiar with some of the things that you do. But for the audience at home who maybe are less familiar, would you mind introducing yourself to them, telling them a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and yeah, just introduce yourself, whatever you feel they need to know.
Yes, so as you said, hi, I'm Brogan, the creator of Project Simia, which is a primatology focused sort of educational project based on social media. So I'm passionate, obviously, about primates, but not just about primates. I'm passionate about animals and conservation in general. I sort of come from a scientific background, so I've been to university. I'm a first gen academic, and I completed my master's degree at Bangor University, where I sort of focused all of my work on primatology. And since graduating, I've sort of still kept in contact with the academic side of things, although my sort of day job is unrelated. And that's really where sort of Project Simia is my very much my passion project, and my sort of way to still keep engaged with the conservation field. So yeah, I'm really enjoying sort of doing communications and using social media. Spend way too much time on it, but
That's always the way. I find that, like, with the podcast, I feel like the majority of my time should be spent editing or talking to people or whatever. No, it's always social media is the one, and
yeah,
it sucks you in for hours and hours and hours once you're on there. Because, yeah.
it really does. There'll be times where I'll be at work and I'll be scrolling and people are like, "Oh, can you do something?" I'm like, "Yeah, one sec. I've just got to send this post or something."
Mhm.
So maybe it's a problem, but it's for the greater good. So
I was going to say, you're not wasting your time doing just like scrolling and looking at memes or like losing hours of your life watching TikToks. You're doing something constructive. So I would say
yeah,
totally justifiable behavior. 100%. 100%.
valid.
Yes, it's fully an excuse. I suppose it leads nicely into my next question, which is, what are you spending all of your time on social media doing? What is Project Simia? Tell us a little bit about it and introduce that to the listeners as well.
Yeah, so it's, as I said, an educational project with a primatology focus. So I'm really aiming to bring the exciting and fascinating world of primates to followers, and they can be
Mhm.
people from any background. I really want it to be accessible and not just for academics. Um, you know,
Mhm.
it's kind of preaching to the choir if I speak to academics about why primates are great. Um,
Mhm.
it's I really want to connect with people who don't have that sort of background or the prior knowledge about primates, um, to show to them and explain to them why primates are fascinating and why they're really important and why we
Mhm.
absolutely need to support their conservation. So I could cover a variety of topics, from fun primate facts, delve into conservation issues, as well as sort of tackle recent scientific advancements.
Mhm.
So, one of the sort of regular posts I do on the accounts is recent research, which is where I take a paper that's come out recently and sort of translate it into something a lot more accessible for people to quickly read and understand. Because obviously, there's quite a few barriers with science, with the complex language and stuff. So, at the heart of Simia, that's sort of what I'm doing.
Mhm. I think that's it's a really good way of doing it as well because I feel like and it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Especially we talked to Rebecca last week, who's working in Paraguay, and she was talking a lot about all of these conservation issues that surround capuchins, and howler monkeys in Paraguay. And I think a lot of people assume all of these primate species are protected because they are popular, they're well known. But I guess people know them on like this surface level of like they're charismatic, they're cool, they do interesting things, but they don't know a lot about them. So it's good that your account kind of then comes in and provides the actually science-based research that kind of is behind all that, what makes them really interesting, amazing animals to kind of look at. So it's a really good way of doing it. And yeah, it's something I appreciate, obviously, because that's what we try and do as well, is take the kind of complicated, maybe sometimes inaccessible formats and translate them into a way that's I hope digestible for listeners. Sometimes I do go down rabbit holes where I'm like, I feel like we're losing people, but most of the time, I hope digestible for everyone. No, that's really good, and I suppose I kind of talked a little bit about why I was interested in primate conservation there, but what was it that pulled you into that in the first? Because I suppose when you're setting up an Instagram account, there you could have picked any number of species from around the world because everything needs conserving. Everything has a reasonably interesting story. Why primates specifically for you?
Yeah, so believe it or not, when I was younger, I used to be absolutely terrified of primates. I don't know why, but it was like baboons in particular used to like scare the living
Hmm.
daylights out of me. And at some point, I think it was during my A levels, I just sort of came around and I sort of started researching it more. And I was like, oh, primates are actually really interesting.
Hmm.
And I sort of went into my degree sort of already a bit more sort of focused on primates and primatology. And sort of as the degree progressed, just sort of engaged more and more of research to do with primates and just fell more in love with them, I guess. um, but yeah, I'm obviously very biased. I think primates are the coolest animals out there. But from an ecological standpoint, they're really important as well. So, they're really important seed dispersers. So they're sort of vital components in their ecosystems, as well as acting as predators and prey.
Hmm.
Um, so, a healthy forest has a healthy populations of primates, but also sadly they are very endangered. Over 60% of species are at risk of extinction at the moment,
Hmm.
and it's only getting worse. Populations are all declining, and they're threatened by a myriad of different things. So, as I sort of came out of academia, I thought, well, I want to do something to help this. So, um,
Hmm.
thus, Project Simia was born.
That makes perfect sense, and especially because they are I can see how they're easy to fall in love with even if you don't know anything about
Mm.
them. So then when you start to uncover all of these things, I found that with the pangolin as well. When I first kind of was introduced to it, they're instantly charismatic, and then the more you dig, the more you're like, they're not just charismatic, they're important, they're interesting, they're beautiful, they're amazing things. And yeah, I have to admit, I don't know if you've listened to one of the episodes back in the lemur series. I also was not necessarily a fan of primates earlier on in life because I was bitten by one
Oh
a very
no.
young age, a red ruffed lemur, and I still like. As much as I look at them now, and I'm like, I need to get over this. I still there's a little part of me where I was like, there's this like fear that it holds over me. Like I'm like, oh no 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 no. But yes, I think I think once you get over that, I can they're all very lovable and interesting. And yeah, fantastic. And your posts only go to help with that. So excellent work.
Good, thank
There.
you.
um, Speaking of the posts, actually, I'm doing excellent segues today. I don't know how I'm managing it. I'm usually so bad at kind of linking things together, but this is I've ruined it now by highlighting it to the
Yeah.
listeners. But I'm so proud of myself. Actually, something that I think kind of your posts do is highlight really interesting, important information, as we've kind of talked about. And I think one of my favorite kind of series of posts that you ever did, and because it's a distinction that I think is really important, and you try and make it working in a zoo. I try and make it to people all the time, and it's sometimes it just is one of those things that sometimes just doesn't go in. But I think your post really did a good job of explaining it, which is different types of primates. So primates, for anyone who doesn't know, there are you classified them in four ways in your series of posts. You had apes, monkeys, lemurs, and misfits. And I think it was an excellent series of posts that kind of explained that difference to people. So I guess could you maybe, I suppose, introduce in a way what a primate is, because we've kind of talked about them a little bit, but introduce what it is and kind of
Hmm.
explain the four different types there. And it's a big question, I know, but you talk for as long
Yeah,
as you need about that distinction.
that's a very meaty
Mhm.
question. Yeah, so primate is the order of mammals, and obviously we're primates. And there is a lot of different species. Depending on sort of which distinctions you go with, there's about over 500 or so, and they're very diverse across the species. How we organize them, it gets a little bit complicated, and some of the terms are very sort of wordy, difficult to remember. So with this post, I was really trying to approach it from sort of more of a layman's perspective. And I think if you asked someone on the street, oh, name a type of primate or a group of primates or something, you'd almost certainly get apes, monkeys, and lemurs, which are the sort of three broad terms that people are familiar with. And although they're not strictly what we use in primatology, they do largely hold up. So lemurs, they have, so each group has sort of distinct traits that will set them apart from the other groups. Lemurs have what we term more ancestral traits, and that just means their traits are more similar to the sort of ancestral lineage of primates that evolved into the ones we see today. So that's things like they have longer snouts, they have wet noses, their sense of smell is a bit more developed than sort of us and monkeys, which are dry-nosed primates. As well, they have a reflective layer at the back of their eyes called the, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I looked up pronunciation today as well, tapetum lucidium. I don't know how you pronounce
I was
it.
going to say that's you. I don't know why you're looking because I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. That's
Just
yeah.
agreeing. So yeah, that's a reflective layer at the back of their eye, which helps with night
Mhm.
vision. If you shine a torch in like a cat's eyes, it reflects back, and that's what that layer is. As well, lemurs have a modified lower incisors, which make a tooth comb, and that helps with grooming. And then they actually have a second tongue underneath their primary tongue, which is used for helping to clean that tooth comb. So, yeah, some fascinating little features with lemurs. And these are things that lemurs have, other primates don't, so they're very special. And then, of course, lemurs evolved in isolation from other primate species on Madagascar. So they're, very special, completely endemic to that island, found nowhere else. And as well, that's why we see such diversity in lemurs. Um, and then, of course, you have the monkey and apes, which most people are probably a bit more familiar with. So monkeys and apes are a bit more similar to each other. So we have dry noses, as I said, short snouts. Sight is our primary sense. We sort of rely on that the most. But the easiest way to distinguish a monkey from an ape is to look for a tail. If there's a tail, it's a monkey. Although there's one exception to the rule, because there always is, and that's Barbary macaques. They have vestigial tails. So there's like a tiny bit of bone there, but it looks like they don't have one. But generally, the rule holds up. And then within monkeys, you can distinguish them further. So we use two sort of main groupings, and that's Catarrhini primates and Platyrrhini primates. The sort of layman terms of that are Afro-Eurasian monkeys and monkeys of the Americas. So, and the easiest way to distinguish between them, apart from geographically where they live, is to look at the nose. So, monkeys of the Americas, they have a very wide septum, and their nostrils sort of point sideways. Whereas Afro-Eurasian monkeys, which is kind of where the apes are nestled into, we have a narrow septum and our nostrils point downwards. So that's sort of the foolproof way to distinguish between them. And then, of course, the apes, which have arguably the most famous primates in them. Obviously, you have us, gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, bonobos, which are a little bit less well known, and gibbons. They're actually apes. They're classed as small apes, but they are apes. So, and apes have a few features that set them apart from the others. Aside from, obviously, great apes have generally larger body sizes and slightly slower life histories, but we also have 5 cusps on our molars. So dentition could be a really good way of distinguishing between different groups as well. But yes, then last but not least is it's very lot
I
to
was going to say,
answer.
you're out of breath now. You've been going for...
I know. I'm like, whew. So yeah, the misfits. It's kind of sort of the unofficial term I gave them, but this was sort of the group where I put the species that probably a lot of people either A, don't even know exist, or wouldn't necessarily look at them and think, oh, that's a primate. That's very closely related to a monkey or to us. And that's your species like tarsiers, galagos, potos, and lorises. So tarsiers you've probably almost definitely seen before, but just didn't know it. They're the ones with the really, really big eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got tarsiers, galagos. You might know them by their other name, which is bush babies.
Yep, the classic, very,
Yeah,
very cute. I feel like
familiar.
that's as soon as there'll be light bulbs going off across every listener, being like,
Yeah.
"Yep, now I know what that is." Yep.
You've got potos as well, which are very, very similar. Sort of another small-bodied cryptic primate. They look a bit like bush babies, but with very small ears and like really kind of like stubby, cute hands. It's like the easiest way to describe it without a picture. And then lastly, you have the lorises, which are the only venomous primate. They actually have a gland in their elbow, which secretes an oil. When mixed with their saliva, gives them a venomous bite. So,
Nasty.
yeah.
That's a hidden surprise.
Yes. Yes, they look very cute, but very deadly.
That's fantastic, and I think such good because I think I don't know when I'm trying to explain it to people. You're kind of like, so monkeys and apes, and then I stop there because I can't like I'm never like when you get into all the other little complicated things. That's when it becomes complicated and strange and like.
It
Yeah,
is,
like
yeah.
I think a lot of people once they get monkeys and apes, that's enough for them. But it's good because like it's
Yeah.
good to have the extra information as well because you sometimes forget. I think because lemurs do look, as you were talking about, they've got that kind of longer kind of snout. They do look much quite a bit different. The others, the misfits, look a bit different. So you kind of do forget that they're there as well. So it'll be excellent for people to kind of know and have that kind of distinction and kind of appreciate, I suppose, just how diverse a group it is. It's really, really, yeah, really, really important and special and interesting. Just a quick sidebar because you reminded me while you were answering the question there. We were talking. You mentioned great apes, and the other day, I was at Chester Zoo having a wander around, appreciating their orangutans, and me and the person I was with, I'll not name and shame them in case you do disagree. We came to the conclusion that orangutans are the greatest of the great apes. Would you agree?
What do you have, what's your reasoning?
So
Sell this
okay,
to me.
so there was several. It was close between them and bonobos. Like they were the two that were up there because we thought chimpanzees are kind of scary, and
Yeah.
sometimes have a bit of an angry attitude problem, which we didn't. And gorillas also big, frightening, kind of scary. They are impressive. They're magical to see. They're really quite cool. They're very unique and very clever, as all the great apes are. But again, they have that kind of scariness about them. I don't know what it is. They're just a big silverback's quite intimidating. Whereas we then came down to where the bonobos and orangutans seem just more chilled out, more relaxed, more.
Hmm.
I hate to say it, more slightly. I think like the person I was with was explaining to me that bonobos have often been kind of um, found to be. They look very much like chimps for people who don't really know about them, but they're a bit more
Mm.
civilized. They're a bit more intelligent. They're a bit more interesting. And then orangutans are just to me the so but then it came down to kind of orangutans. When you look at a baby orangutan, definitely the cutest. They're one of like they're found, I think they are the only ones that are found in Asia, I think.
Hmm.
Extra bonus points
Yeah.
for uniqueness and specialness. The rest of them all go for that black fur, so they all look very similar, whereas orangutans stand out with that strong kind of orangey ginger. Excellent. They're just always entertaining to watch as a group. They're always doing something interesting, whether it be using tools. I know they all do that, but there's just something about orangutans. And then obviously, I think some people classify, I don't know, humans, of course, we are, I think, one of the great apes. We were removed from the running because we're just dreadful. So that left, I think,
Yeah.
orangutans with the strongest argument for being the greatest of the great apes.
Yeah, you kind of sold that to me really well. Um, no, you're right. That I do like chimpanzees because they've got like that little bit of
Hmm.
spice, that they're just like a little bit
Yeah.
chaotic, but definitely like a little bit too chaotic
Hmm.
sometimes. Gorillas, yeah, gorillas are good. That sounds like I don't like gorillas.
There was something about gorillas,
No,
but we just couldn't find a reason to elevate them higher on the great apes
they're
ranking. We were kind of like they're really cool and really special, and they perform such
mm,
important functions. But when you're comparing them to orangutans,
yeah. And orangutans just got something
mhm,
else. I don't know what it is, but I
there's
see what
just
you
a
mean.
magic about an orangutan, and I can't put my finger on what it is. There's just something about it that you're like special. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you've convinced me on that one.
Yep, I'm glad because I needed justification of that because I know like I wasn't sure if it was correct, but now I'm now set in my ways. Excellent, excellent. I'm glad I took that detour. Um, but we back on track. We kind of talked about your social media post there and the distinctions and the information you post, and you always post things in such a positive way. You post interesting, factual, researched information, great photos, all of this stuff that's really promotes the conservation and protection of wildlife generally, I suppose, because all of this kind of relates to one another. But there is a darker side, I think, to social media when it comes to primates. They're not always portrayed in the way that you portray them. And this is kind of the reason that we kind of wanted, kind of the main thing we wanted to talk about today was this darker side of the portrayal of primates on social media. I'm sure a lot of people see them on things like TikTok. There's apparently, I was listening to another podcast that's totally unrelated to animals, and they were talking about monkey TikTok, and I was like, oh no. And then all of these pictures of people posing in certain ways
Yeah.
with it, and then all of these things start to develop. And I wondered, could you explain to our listeners a little bit more about what the issue is with the portrayal of primates on social media, a bit more generally, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. Social media, whilst it is a brilliant source of
Mhm.
good, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It also can be a source of bad. And obviously, a lot of social media is driven by, like engagement and numbers, and cute content obviously does quite well. And unfortunately, for primates, they are cute. They're attractive animals. They're entertaining to watch. Infants, um, very adorable, can remind people of human babies, or they might behave in ways that remind us of us. And unfortunately, that makes them very attractive to people wanting to keep them as pets or using them as sort of photo props, or I mean basically for clout chasing sometimes. People will have a baby monkey and dress it up, or they'll train them to do human activities or put them in sort of human situations and sort of film it, and that sort of content does do quite well, sometimes, sadly. And as well, I think they get a bit sort of memeified as well. So quite a few of the big like content creators that I follow or have followed find monkey content funny. And it'll be like a video of a chimpanzee that's been trained to like hold a beer or a wine glass, and like pose. And whilst on the surface, you could look at that animal and be like, oh, well, it looks healthy, it's not, visually really distressed or anything. So what's the harm in that type of content? It really feeds in to this message of undermining their conservation. And we have had countless scientific papers that have showed that, these such images completely undermine conservation messages and actively harm, that species conservation. And when you have species that are endangered and on the brink of extinction, we really can't afford to be sort of, combating that. And also, it just seems, unethical to make, because they are wild animals. They're not domesticated in any way. They're not even close to being domesticated. They shouldn't ever be in a situation where they're someone's pet. You can never fully accommodate them in a household setting or care for them how they need to be cared. So not only is it damaging for their conservation, but that's also really damaging for that individual animal. How many rescues have got, primates come to them that were ex-pets? Even in the UK, a lot of sanctuaries here have ex-pets come in, and there's a lot of health issues. They're really socially maladapted. They really struggle. So it is definitely a really big issue.
Mhm. And I suppose it's not even just an issue for those individuals that are the ones that are in the videos, but it is then a wider problem because it encourages other malpractice. Like when people
Yeah,
go to perhaps organizations that are looking after primates in a responsible way. They go to a local zoo, which is fully conservation registered and all that, and then they start treating them and in a funny way, trying to feed them things. Also, I suppose the
yeah,
pet trade also comes into it because then they start seeing these things and think, oh, where can I buy a little marmoset, or where can I buy something like this that you shouldn't really have at all. So it just
yeah, absolutely.
it's this kind of self-perpetuating issue that has to be dealt with in some way. It's an interesting one as well. Um, and yeah, I don't know how you would even begin to start getting rid of that, because it's something that it seems so ingrained in social media that people just see it as a normal that you can't even
Yeah,
start to challenge it, I guess, in a way. Because but how, I suppose, is that kind of the ethos behind your work? Is you're trying to change that perception by posting these positive, this is how we should be looking at them type of way? Is that kind of where another? Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Um, it's really difficult to combat because if you try and do well by maybe commenting on it, saying, "Oh, this is bad," but then that just feeds into the algorithm, which then pushes it more. And how many other comments is it getting of people saying, "Oh, this is really cute. I want one." It's almost like fighting a losing battle. But by sort of taking, for example, my account, Project Simia, and trying to um, push this message of, that it's not okay to have primates as pets. Um, these images are irresponsible, and here's why, and have the justification, that I at least hope that it can convince people over to that viewpoint, um, and make an improvement somewhere,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, it's a really tricky one, I guess. Is Yeah, and it's good that that's there as kind of a backup, because when people then click on the hashtag monkey or the hashtag whatever while they're scrolling. Eventually they will come across a post that says, not a good plan, not
Yeah.
good. Let's okay to love these animals, okay to but remember to respect them and treat them fairly. Because I remember reporting something on Facebook once for being like this to me is animal abuse, and it just doesn't get flagged because they think, well, no, it's not, it's just a monkey putting glasses on or whatever. Like, it's not abuse. And you think, well, if only
Yeah.
the Facebook police who are out there kind of looking at the reports actually maybe understood this a bit more, they might do it. But hopefully, yeah. And hopefully alerting the listeners to something like this will also help them kind of keep an eye out for it. And that's the thing, if you see things like this and start to report things like it, the more people who start changing their opinion, it starts to change that tide, I suppose, because they're kind of then like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, they kind of, if social media platforms and things see the number of reports going up on posts like that, that's when they might start to rethink and it might start to be taken more seriously.
Yeah,
And yeah,
absolutely. It snowballs, doesn't it? Really, if you can get more support behind something.
mhm.
But yeah, it goes to show how key education is really to these sorts of things. It starts with education. If you don't understand an issue or you're not aware of it, how can you be expected to, sort of care about it really? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's some. I think we'll get into it a bit later, but there's some really good sort of groups and organisations out there that are doing really good work, particularly challenging the big social media
Mhm.
platforms.
I
Um,
guess, do you want to get into that next? Because I feel like it's the perfect time to mention it. Like, what is
yeah,
what
the
the
segue's
segue
coming.
is here. It's ready to go. What is the kind of what are the organizations that people should be looking out for, and what are the kind of what advice would you give them? I suppose we'll kind of shift all this
Hmm.
forward and talk about it now, because I feel like it's the perfect time, because listeners are probably thinking, well, you're telling me it's bad. What can I do? So what would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely check out Animals for Asia Coalition. So they have a social media action coalition. So it's called SMAC. Um, and they have a team of volunteers that trawl through social media and they collect sort of information on poor animal welfare content. So it's not just about primates, they sort of cover a wide variety of animals. But they've put out a couple of reports that have really delved deep into this and explored how much of a problem this actually is. They also have challenged, like I said a minute ago, the social media giants about, why are you allowing this content? What are you going to do about it? And I think most recently, a couple of YouTube channels that were posting animal cruelty eventually got removed by YouTube because of their work, which is, brilliant, brilliant news. But as well, they sort of outline, they have a really good, I can't find it off the top of my head, but there's a really good sort of resource on their website where they outline what to do if you come across, a post like we've outlined. So absolutely, they say don't engage with it because, like I said, it'll just push it in the algorithm, which sort of makes it worse. And to report it via the social media's sort of report function. And I think you can also report sort of like accounts to them because definitely some counts are like completely centered on this as well. And additionally, there's a really good resource which everyone should follow, and that's the IUCN's Primate Specialist Group, the section for human primate interactions, a very wordy name, put out imagery guidelines. And they've released it and translated it into so many different languages, so it's accessible to people from all over the world. And it outlines what sort of images you should be taking, which ones are okay, and which ones definitely aren't. So, things like having contact with a primate, or having a primate wearing human clothes, or like feeding wild primates. They're all big no-nos because, like we said, it pushes this idea that they're pets or they're things to be held and cuddled. Um, as well. My dog's just come
That's
into
okay.
the window.
Very good. I mean, you were making a very good point there, but I now have to ask, what's the dog's name?
Holly.
Oh, love it, love it. I'm sorry, listeners, you can't see, but very, very cute, very, very cute. But but
I know what
you're
we're
making
saying.
good. But
Yes.
back to the good point. Back to the good point. What?
um,
Yes.
yeah. There's
Hmm.
like several red flags I think that very quickly can tell whether an image is sort of good or bad or not, and that's they're in human clothing, they're in a human's house, they're sort of interacting with human objects, they're being made to perform in any way. They're not interacting with others of their own kind, so in a natural grouping, and they're all big red flags, definitely. And the IOCN advise as well, even if you perhaps work with primates and, maybe you're in a sanctuary and you're caring for one, even if you post a photo of you with, I mean, you might generally be obviously, rehabilitating that individual, but the context with which that post is made can very easily get lost on social media. People see an image, may not even read the caption, and then you also have to think about the sort of content scraping accounts that will just take a cute image and then sort of repost it and not share your original caption. So even if you put a disclaimer at the bottom saying, oh, primates aren't pets, don't recreate this, these are orphans or whatever, that can very easily get lost, um, or mistranslated. So the IUCN definitely advised that it's just easier to sort of avoid it altogether, which I can appreciate if you are working in a sanctuary and you are doing really hard work, because it is hard work, obviously, raising abused animals and hopefully rehabilitating them to go back to the wild. You would like to share sort of content with social media to hopefully try and, spread your message or whatever. But, you know, we sort of know that it's not going to potentially do more harm than good. So, but it's a responsibility we all have.
That's the thing, and I think that's you do want to post. Oh, this is an amazing interaction that I've had. This is like, of course you do, but it's
Yeah.
just as good a story to tell people in real life. Or it's just like not everything has to go on social media all of the time, and you can maybe present work in different ways. Because like whenever I go somewhere where there are primates, or it really goes for any animal, I suppose, and it's such good transferable advice. It's how you present them and how you post about them and what the photos you post show and how you portray is also important. And it's and what I said there about transferable advice, I think, is also something that I want to talk a little bit more about, because I think it's, if you love tigers, for example, or you love
Mm,
what are the other ones that are common? It seems like it's big cats tend to be one. Things like bears often pop up as something that is used a
yeah.
lot in these kinds of posts, and like um,
Elephants.
that's a huge yep. That's and people who like go and have certain interactions at a quote unquote sanctuary in a place that's
Hmm.
okay. That maybe not as sanctuary like as you might imagine. All of these things, it's so transferable. Of kind of like, think about what you're posting, think about how you're portraying it, thinking about how you're kind of talking about it, why you were there, who is benefiting from the things that you're posting, all of these things. Like,
Yeah.
are you posting it to highlight elephant conservation, say, or primate conservation or tiger conservation? Or are you posting it for a cool reason because you're having a really cool photo with this animal, and then actually the only person who really benefits there is not even you, because you could score a couple cool points, but you'll be forgotten in the feed in a second. It's the people who
Hmm.
let you take that photo that benefit, because then they get more custom and more people go and want to see them, and like all of these things come into it of kind of sustainable tourism and travel, but like it's so
Hmm.
linked to so many other things that
Absolutely.
like yeah, it's a difficult web to unpick, but it's such good baseline advice that if you just follow it's so good. And yeah, the IUCN I think always put out quite good stuff. So that's excellent resources, and
Yeah.
I'll put links to it in the description of the episode. So if people are interested, they can go down there and click and go kind of straight to it, get reading it, and maybe go through their own social media and think, oh, maybe I should just archive that, or just delete that, or reframe it slightly. Um,
Absolutely. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in looking back and seeing an image and thinking, oh, actually, I shouldn't have taken that photo, or maybe I shouldn't have visited that sanctuary. And, but what's important is that you've learned and you're moving forward, and it's okay to go back and admit that you were wrong. Because, nobody's perfect. Nobody gets it right first time.
Exactly. And I think that's the interesting thing is like I don't know if it was the same with you, but as I grew up, I went from loving animals to loving conservation. And it's those subtle differences that make that switch. I think of like, if you love animals, you would post those photos because you love animals, you love seeing animals. But then if you get into loving conservation and that sort of element, that's when the switch changes, and that's when the social media posts slightly change. And like, it's not saying people who love animals are wrong or bad. It's just this subtle difference, I think, that's there in the posting and the way that you post, and like thinking about that kind of distinction is really, really interesting for me.
Absolutely.
I don't know why, it's been something I've been thinking about a lot recently. So this episode's come at a really good time for me personally to to get to chat about it. No, that's really, really interesting. Really, really fantastic advice. I don't know. Before we move on slightly onto my next question, was there anything else you wanted to talk about to do with primates and social media, or do you think we've covered it all and everything you wanted to say?
I think we've covered it all.
Interesting. That was an excellent, concise
I feel
guide
like
for people.
I've talked a lot. I feel like I've talked loads.
No, well, for listeners, it's Friday at 6 p.m. We're recording this, so it's working out great for me because I'm sat here like, yeah, you do all the talking. It's been a busy week, so it's great for me just getting sit. No, and I'm sure like all really interesting. The listeners will have loved hearing it. So, no, fantastic. I guess that moves me on to my not quite final next question, which is because we are an underappreciated animals and conservation and plant and all sorts of stuff podcast, underappreciated everything podcast. I always like to ask people who are into the field of conservation, and especially into when we're talking about a more general topic like this, like primates, what their favorite underappreciated species is if we narrow it down. So for you, could you tell me, is there a primate of any of the four categories we talked about, I suppose, that you would say is underappreciated, that you'd like to shine the spotlight on, your favorite of the moment?
Oh, this was such a difficult question. I sat there for ages thinking, but I like this primate, I like this primate. But sort of in the end, I picked the gelada. Gelada.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice.
Yeah. So I feel like not a lot of people sort of really are aware of them or think about them that often. Or maybe that's just normal to not think about geladas all the time. But if you don't know, they're sort of very reminiscent of baboons, sort of medium-bodied primate, but they have like this glorious mane of like blonde highlighted hair that literally looks like it could be part of a L'Oreal commercial. And they're called the bleeding heart monkeys sometimes because obviously they have the sort of the red patch of skin on their chests. But they live high up on the mountains, the plateaus of Ethiopia, and they literally spend their days shuffling around on their bottoms, eating grass. And, that's pretty unique in primates. Most primates will eat generally a omnivorous diet, heavy on the fruit. Obviously, you have those that are more adapted to eating leaves. But, geladas are special in that they eat mostly grass. So they're really sort of unique, dramatic as well. When they sort of sound off at each other, because they live in. So there'll be sort of one male who live with sort of a group of females in like a band, and that's sort of the reproductive unit. And then there'll sort of be bands all around each other. So it's like a massive group of them all spread out across. And when a young upstart comes in trying to nick someone else's girls, and they sort of flash their massive canines, because I mean these canines look a bit ridiculous on a primate that eats just grass, but they're there for a very good reason, and they can completely flip up their top lip so it looks a little bit demonic. But I love that about them. They just, they got a little something.
They are. I was going to say, they've got that little spice that we were talking about earlier with the
Yeah,
chimpanzees. They've got that little just
yeah.
something extra where you're like, can't put my finger on it, but they're interesting. Yep. Uh,
So when I did my third year dissertation, I sort of did it at Colchester Zoo. I was looking at sex differences in enrichment use, and they have a group of geladas there. So I basically got to spend 2 weeks, 9 to 5, watching primates at the zoo. It was great. Um, and the geladas were just so funny to watch. Every now and again, if they caught a zookeeper walking up to like their sort of door area, they'd like all dramatically scream because they'd get excited because they knew they were going to get fed soon. And like they had this spinning plate thing, and all the babies would play on it and would just be like flinging around. It was great. So I think I have a bit of a soft spot for them.
I like that. I'm a big fan because they have some at Edinburgh Zoo, and we recently talked about them in context of not Bristol Zoo, the Wild Place project as well. And there's something about them every time you see them. They just are just they're just a bit weird, and they're a bit like they're always
Yeah.
doing something strange, and they're like,
Yeah.
I always like it. I always think it's funny at Edinburgh Zoo though, because the geladas are next to the lions, and the lions sit currently there are 3 cubs, there are 2 males and a female, and the female lion, the lioness, will sit and she looks at them all day through the fence like, what are you and can I eat you? And like I just love that little relationship we have going there, because I feel like if she got in there, they would put up a much harder fight than that you'd probably be expecting out of a primate, I suppose, because they do look very
Yeah.
cute in all of these posts that we've been talking about, but fearsome when they have to be. And I think geladas are no
Yeah.
different from that stereotype. Yep.
Definitely. Which is exactly why you shouldn't have them as pets, because you think they're cute and cuddly, but primates are strong, and they all have really big canines. Literally bigger than some big cats, and it's you wouldn't expect a fruit-eating animal to have such weaponry, but they do.
They are, fantastic. I just an excellent choice in another way, because I feel like it's choosing anything when I ask a conservation person who's interested in a group as wide as primates is never an easy choice. So good choice even narrowing it
No.
down. Usually people go, I have 3. Or like I have like, so picking one was excellent, because I was thinking the same thing, and then the more I thought about it, the more I was kind of like, I'm just picking basic ones. But like I was like, the red ruff lemur, of course, despite my previous incident with one, always sits because of that. I do like a safaka. The way that they dance is always
Yes.
special.
Yes.
Trying to think of other ones that I was thinking of highlighting. There was geladas were definitely high on the list. I love a drill, because they are another one that falls
Yes.
into that category of having the spice of which, go out. People who think that primates are just chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, and quote unquote monkeys of various types, go and look them up, because they're so diverse and so strange.
Yeah.
Go out there and have a look.
Yeah. You guys are missing
You
out.
really are.
There's so many different species, and they look so visually
hmm
different as well.
hmm
I mean, you've got snub-nosed monkeys as well,
hmm
that like basically don't have a little
Yep.
nose. And have you ever seen Alien Resurrection?
Yes, I have.
At the end when there's like the weird newborn hybrid alien,
Yes.
do you think snub-nosed monkeys look a little bit like that? Like just a
Just a
tiny
tiny
bit.
bit. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, but yeah. I mean, I feel like I need to re-watch this, because I'm now thinking like, I'm just like, I'm not sure I'm getting the picture that you want me to, because I've definitely seen the film, but I'm now like, I
Yeah.
can't even picture that.
I think it's like the
Okay,
nose.
okay.
Or maybe I need to rewatch it. For the sake of
hmm
scientific
Yeah,
study, to
I think
rewatch.
so. I think so. Is that one? It's one of the older ones with Sigourney Weaver, is it, or is it one of the newer? Yeah,
Yeah, it was the very last one they did. It was
yeah,
like number 4.
yes, with Winona Ryder in it as well. Or was that one of the? There's so many aliens. They go
I
off
don't
the
know.
rails
Yeah.
so fast that I'm now like, look, this is a
Yeah.
completely different podcast reviewing the Alien franchise. But no, that's okay, okay. And then on the opposite scale, I suppose you then have is it the proboscis monkey that has the stupidly
Yeah.
long nose as well? That you're kind of like,
Yep.
So yeah, they really do.
And like the bigger bigger the nose, the sexier he is to females. So
What a way to pull that is look how big my nose is. It just, whenever we talk about animals using weird things like that, like the big nose, I always think about another film reference. I don't know if you've seen A Star Is Born, the new one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. There's a bit where
no, I
she is
haven't.
like leaving the, like, he drops her off, and he's made a big point of how funny or how like pretty her nose is, and she walks and she just like strokes her nose, and it's like, ooh, like that's how and that's always how I picture monkeys with big funny noses flirting with each other, like, look at this nose, and just like again, we're getting very off track here, but it's good, and
Yeah.
it just goes to show how much fun you can have with primates without posting bad content about them, listeners.
Yes,
uh,
exactly.
no, that's fantastic. I guess that kind of leads me on to my final question. I think is, we kind of covered advice a little bit before. Is there any other advice you wanted to slip in? And if not, where can people go to learn more? Maybe follow you, kind of that sort of stuff. Double barreled question there, but I'm sure after the long and complicated questions I've asked you throughout this interview, you can handle this one. So, yeah, anything you want to share for those?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sort of as I said, absolutely recommend following SMAC, um, as well, checking out the IUCN guidelines. Um, and yes, follow Project Simia. So, sort of one of the things I've been really busy with this week, I'm just gonna do it, slip in a little announcement here, is that I've been preparing a website for Simia, and sort of one of the key components of it was I really wanted to make sure it was like a good central place for resources. Because I know sometimes if you want to delve into an issue, it can be really daunting thinking, okay, like what do I Google? How do I find good people to follow, or what makes a good organization? It can be really difficult to do. So I've been compiling sort of places to um, sort of good organisations that are benefiting conservation well, that adhere to the IUCN guidelines, very important, and as well places that you could volunteer to. If you want to support places, giving your time's valuable, and this can be done in person, but also virtually as well. You know, you can also consider donating, and don't ever feel like your donation might be too small or anything like that. It's very much a case of every little helps. um, don't think you have to be donating like £100 million or anything to make a difference. It really can be any amount. As well, there'll be some sort of petitions that are going around. That'd be really good to sign as well. Yeah, as well as some educational resources. So keep an eye on Project Simia. Announcements coming
It,
soon.
and that's perfect, because actually even today, I kind of wonder, because I've always followed you on social media. I was kind of like, I'm going to do some last minute research. I'll just give it a quick like search and see if a website comes up. So you've really timed that well for me. I was like, perfect. In the future, there will now be one. If it is,
Yes,
and
very soon.
whenever it does come out, I will add the link to it to the description of this episode. So if you're listening in the future, then it will be there for you ready. If you're listening maybe on release date, it probably won't be there, because this is coming out very, very soon. So it maybe won't be there for you. But if you come back to the episode, re-listen, the link will be there eventually for you whenever it's ready. And I'll also, of course, put links and what are they? Not tags. The little like, I'll put down in the description anything you need to find Project Simia will be there. Make it easy for you. It'll all be down there as well. Um, so I guess while you're down there, I always like to slip this in because it's so smooth. While you're down there checking out Project Simia, if you're on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you are anyway, you can follow us. We are at Pangolin Podcast on everything. And also you can follow the podcast on your streaming service of choice, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, or wherever you are, wherever you're streaming this right now, you can follow us. Leave us a nice review if you don't mind. That would be also very nice. Tell your friends about us. Whatever you need to do, you can do that as well while you are researching all of your different primate facts you can put on some of the other episodes. We do also, if people are new to the series and have come through Project Simia to us, we have a whole series all about lemurs, which the Land of the Lemurs was done in collaboration with the Lemur Conservation Network. So, and features charities from across the world and researchers from across both Madagascar, the US, Europe, all over the place who are doing fantastic work with lemurs. So might as well slip that in for any lemur or more. If you want to learn more about primates, go back. I think it's episodes 20 through 32 or something. There's a load of them there. So go and have a look at that. Now, before I do any more horrific self promo, I suppose it's just time for me to say a huge thank you to you, Brogan, for your time, your research, your posts. Always really interesting to me. So just thank you, thank you for appearing on the show and everything you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, because it's well deserved compliment, well deserved. And I guess with that, I will say a huge thank you to the listeners. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and coming back and listening. And until next time, everybody, goodbye.